I have known about Hilda for quite a while, but for some reason, whenever I would look up its reviews of the first season, they would say that besides the great animation, it's nothing special, so I kind of ignored the show. That is until a few days ago, one of the YouTubers I follow, Sarcastic Chorus, posted a summary of Hilda. And I watched it and thought that looks fun, and went on and watched the entire 2 seasons in 3 days, as you do when you find something you like, and the time just flies by. So I decided I want to talk about this great show and spread its awesomeness far and wide. One thing that I would like to point out is that the seasons feel way different, in a good way. The second season is way better, in my opinion, but it's also way darker. Darker for a kids show, that is. The first season introduces us to the world Hilda lives in, its creatures, and how they are interacting with humans and vice versa. While the first season was not as good as the second one, it's still amazing, and it made me fall in love with the show. By which I mean, there is an episode that made me go, wow, I like this show. It was the third episode, Bird Parade. There are quite a few reasons I like this episode in particular. Beautiful art at the end scene, Hilda's relationship with her mother, introduction to the city, and so on. But the reason why I fell in love with the show is that it does not hide its magical world, but lives in it. People's lives are affected by all the magical creatures around them. And it's in this episode that I realized that for the first time. When I saw people that know about the Thunderbird and were expecting her to fly by, and it wasn't just some folk tale, but a part of their reality. There are many stories with magical world and modern life combining, but what's rare is for them to be one. What I mean by that is a modern world that knows of and is a part of a magical world. Usually they are separated and magic and its creatures are kept secret. But Hilda doesn't do that. The world is one, and this made me so happy. We get to see how people react to magical creatures and how they interact with them, which is awesome and all I want from a story like this. We can clearly see how magical creatures have affected this world, with things like a giant wall to keep trolls out, or a festival that is dedicated to a mythical bird that flies by every year. Then we can see how people react to these creatures. Some react positively, like Hilda and her friends, while others see them as threats, like Eric, who also sees them as means of getting famous and leaving behind a legend like his ancestors did. I also like Keeper of the Bell. He shows us someone who is not super friendly to magical creatures like trolls, while not being overly aggressive against them either. Rather, accepting them as something that is part of their daily lives, and reacting according to them. If they do not pose a threat to him or the people of the city, he will not antagonize them. I think that's the most realistic approach to this kind of world, full of magic, wonder, and danger. But we still seem to have this separation of magic and people, with witches and their magic, which, if we are being honest, is actually kind of confusing. Do people know about witches and magic that they use, since you can find books that show you how to do dark magic? This can be seen with Victoria Van Gale. She was able to use magic in second season, but how she just learned it? I guess from books on dark magic that she bought in a bookstore? So what is she? A scientist or a witch? But probably not, since the show said that doing a magical spell doesn't make you a witch and that it's more about analytical mind and bravery. Also, Frida just told people that she's a witch a couple of times, and there was no big reaction to it. All of this just makes me wonder, why do witches hide themselves at all? I guess we will find out in the future. In season 1, we get to know all the big characters of the show. My favorites are Hilda and David. I especially like David in the first season. He had some good moments where he stood up for himself. The only disappointment that I experienced with him is that I was expecting him to drop the F-bomb a couple of times during some of his speeches, where he stands up for himself, or tell Frida to just clean up her room. and I honestly felt sad when he said the children version of it. Which is weird, why they had to use that, when you consider how dark the second season got. So what, you can cut kids' heads off, but you can't curse? Why? Is it that bad? I guess that's how censorship works. Speaking of second season, it was great. It improved the things that we liked in the first season and addressed some of the things that were weak, like Hilda's relationship with her mother, or expanding the whole world, dealing with magic and witches a lot more. I quite like that Frida is the one that becomes a witch. It fits with her character. The only problem I have now is that poor David kinda gets left out. I mean, Hilda is a badass adventurer, Frida is a cool witch, and what, David is just scared? And in one episode where they dealt with David feeling left out because of his fears, and him losing them made him become a jerk. So what's the message here? Being scared of everything is good? I mean, I don't want him to be a jerk, but this whole experience of dying should have had more impact on him, either good or negative, instead of just going back to status quo. This is not good for kids who struggle with fear. I used to and still do struggle with it. I'm still somewhat afraid of dogs, height, and going to dark places at night. But I tried to fight through them, and with age, I did not become braver. I just learned how to deal with fear. My fear of dogs will not just go away, no matter what people say to me. But it's no longer as strong as it was, because I accepted it and learn more about dogs and what makes them angry, so that I don't put myself in a position where I will have to experience that gut-wrenching fear of not being able to go home because a dog is on the road to your house and you just have to wait for it to go away. Now I'm only scared of big scary dogs. I can handle the small ones. Second season is also really dark for a kids show, or really for a show in general, with multiple deaths. But I guess since there was no blood, it's okay. Anyway, I like this development since it felt like there was more suspense in every episode. I mean, both Hilda and David died a couple of times. And that twist at the end of the season, amazing. Now that was a good cliffhanger. I won't say what it was, I want you to experience it yourself. Just watch the show. I really liked it and I would recommend it to anyone out there. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked my video and see you next time.